In the first video, we saw how to record a macro and how and why to turn on relative references so the macro behaves the way we want. Let's pick up where we left off with our macro, fill days relative, which enters the days of the week in cells across a row. We'll change it so it enters the days as numbers instead of names and arrange them vertically in a column instead of horizontally in a row. We could record a new macro or build off of this one by editing it manually. Let's edit the macro to see what its instructions look like. Click the macro button. Here's the last macro I recorded, fill days relative. Select it, and then click Edit. This opens the macro in a special text editor called the Visual Basic Editor. Visual Basic is the programming language that macros are recorded in. You can also create macros from scratch in this editor, which is doing honest-to-goodness programming. Here's the macro. It's called a sub, or subroutine, and its name, fill days relative, is followed by a pair of parentheses. I'll select all of this text, starting with sub and ending with end sub, and copy it by pressing Ctrl-C. I'll click here at the end, press Enter, and then paste what I just copied. Let's rename the original macro, fill days relative R, for rows, and rename the copy, fill days relative C, for columns, since these two macros can't have the same name. I'm going to change the instructions in this copy of the macro, fill days relative C. The first thing we need to change is the first instruction. Active cell dot formula R1 C1 equals Sunday. We'll change the day name to the number 1. The next thing we'll do is in the autofill designation. Change A1 through G1, which is going across the row, to A1 through A7, which goes down the A column. Change it in 2 places, here and also here. Those are just a couple of minor changes, but they'll change the behavior of the macro. I'll close the Visual Basic Editor by clicking this X in the red box, and that'll save my changes. And now if I click Macros, I have 3 macros, and here's fill days relative C, which is the new macro that'll behave a little differently. I'll run it, and you can see that instead of entering Sunday, Monday, and so on, across row 1, it enters the numbers 1 through 7 down column A. All that just from a couple of minor changes that we made in the macro editor.